This is a quick video on installing Retropie using the Pi Imager. We'll walk through installing the image, setting up a controller and the Wi-Fi. We'll also enable SSH and update everything. Once everything's updated, we can finally add some ROMs over the local network. It's pretty straightforward, so let's get to it. So the first thing we need to do is download the Raspberry Pi Imager. So let's do a search for Pi OS. Should be the first link here. Download it for your operating system. And then once it's downloaded, go ahead and run it. Install. Leave this box checked and click finish. Go ahead and plug in your SD card if you haven't already. And now we're just going to choose the OS. It's going to be emulations in Game OS, Retropie, and then choose whichever Raspberry Pi you're using. I have a Pi 3. And now I'm going to choose the SD card. And we'll select write. Go ahead and tell it yes to destroy everything and erase the SD card. And now go ahead and take your SD card and pop it into your Raspberry Pi and you should be ready to power it up. So during the initial boot, we just need to set up our controller. I have this controller connected to it that I purchased off of Amazon. I'll leave a link to it in the description below. So we'll go ahead and walk through configuring this controller while following the instructions on the screen. So I'm just going to hold down the A button on the device and then it will prompt me for the rest of the buttons on the controller. And my controller does not have the rest of the buttons, so we'll just skip the rest. I'm also going to skip the hotkey here because I don't have another key to assign it to. And then when you skip the hotkey, it tells you that you have to have it. So it asks if you want to map it to the select button by default. So doing so will map it to pressing select and start at the same time. And now let's go into the wireless configuration. You will need a keyboard connected to your Pi to set up the wireless. I personally use this keyboard here, which I will also leave in the description below. Go to configuration and then Wi-Fi here at the bottom. And then the first thing we have to do is set the Wi-Fi country. So go ahead and tell this yes. System options, wireless LAN, and then select your country. And you don't have to type in your SSID here, you can just cancel this and then go to finish. And then we will go ahead and reboot our Raspberry Pi. And now that we're back, we're going to go back into configuration. We're going to go back to Wi-Fi. And this time you'll see we're prompted to connect to a Wi-Fi network. So go ahead and select connect to a Wi-Fi network. And then select whichever Wi-Fi network is going to be available to you. And then we'll enter the Wi-Fi password. You can take note of the IP address here and you can use it later to copy the ROMs over the network. So now that we're connected, we'll go ahead and exit this. And now let's head into Raspi config. In here is where we can enable SSH, so go down to interface options and then SSH, and then we will tell this yes to enable SSH. And now we can move over to our workstation. And from here we can SSH into our Retropie using either Retropie hostname or the IP address. And it's the default username and password for the Raspberry Pi, which is just Pi and then Raspberry. And then to change the password, like it says here on the screen, type in PASSWD. and it wants the current password and the new password. And now that we're SSH'd into the pod, we can go ahead and update it. And then we'll also do an upgrade. And just tell it yes, and let it do its thing. After the long update, we need to reboot the pod. And then back over to the pod. And now that we're back, we need to go back into our configuration and back into Raspi config. And we need to set our time zone. So under localization here, and then time zone, and then select your time zone. Now if we switch back over to my PC, you can see here I've downloaded the Legend of Zelda ROM. And now all we have to do is open up Windows Explorer. And we can just browse over to our Retropie. And we go into the ROMs folder. And then we have the different emulators that is on the Retropie. And just be sure to select the correct folder. And we'll just take the zip file. No need to extract it. Take the zip file and throw it in the correct folder. And then back on the Raspberry Pi, we just need to go in and restart Emulation Station. And we can see here now it's found one game for the NES. If we go into it, it's Zelda. And if we select it, we have The Legend of Zelda. If you found this video useful, be sure to subscribe to my channel, and as always, thanks for watching.